Assassin's Creed Mirage was supposed to bring the series back to its roots and be a love letter to the original games. I've been a huge fan of the series since the beginning, and I've loved the big RPGs that the games have become, but going back to a smaller game sounded wonderful, but I had my doubts if the developers could fill those promises. Mirage ended up being a very mixed bag for me. It offers an insanely nostalgic experience for longtime fans, but unfortunately it doesn't have the courage to go all the way, and its RPG mechanics become a burden in this small scale. But let's break all that down. Assassin's Creed Mirage brings us back to the Middle East and to the city of Baghdad in the 9th century. We play as Basim, who we know from Valhalla, but with Mirage we get to see a younger version of him as he is inducted into the Hidden Ones and starts to figure out his place in this world. Basim unfortunately is not an interesting protagonist, which is a massive shame as his character in Valhalla was one of the best parts of that game. Younger Basim just doesn't have the gravitas, and his sudden mood changes when it comes to his friend Nehal and his mentor Roshan just struck me the wrong way. There is an attempt of intrigue when it comes to the nightmares Basim has, but if you have played Valhalla you already know what is going on. Story in itself is quite simple and just focuses on Basim finding out the plans of the Order of the Ancients and assassinating them one by one. None of the enemies are unfortunately that memorable. One of the best parts of Mirage is in its structure, as the game takes the investigation style menus from Odyssey and Valhalla and centers the whole game around it. Instead of missions, you do investigations to find your targets that might involve eavesdropping, crime scene analysis or tailing targets. The system really reminded me of the original Assassin's Creed as well, and it's not the only thing. The game is filled with nostalgia for AC1 and in some ways for AC2 as well, and the game goes above just references and Easter eggs and actually captured the heart of those games. Obviously, the Middle Eastern setting does a lot of the heavy lifting with its atmosphere, but even smaller things like the Hidden Ones bureaus having their entrances through the roof garden, being able to pickpocket items, and removing notoriety by tearing down wanted posters or bribing heralds brought a smile to my face. There is also a specific returning location, which was really cool to see. Mirage doesn't hide its influences, and it's clear how much passion the devs put into this game. Unfortunately, they didn't go all the way through in letting go of the RPG systems, and that is where a lot of my frustrations come from. The game clearly was originally going to be Valhalla DLC, as the game still shares most of its core RPG mechanics, but because of the size of the game, those mechanics are so compressed that they become irrelevant. You still have gear that you need to upgrade with materials, and there is a skill tree to be filled out. In my opinion, they could have gotten rid of all of these systems, tie skill and gear upgrades to the story progression, and the game would have felt so much better. You can get materials, skill points, and these faction tokens by completing contracts, which I first thought were procedurally generated, but luckily that wasn't the case. Faction tokens can be exchanged, for example hiring mercenaries to fight enemies or bribing merchants to blend in with them to get through enemy checkpoints. The other thing the game shares with Valhalla is the parkour movement. It still feels very sluggish, which was fine in those big RPGs, but now that we have returned back to the city-based gameplay, I do wish it was more fluid and fast like it was in Unity, for example. The city itself is designed decently for the parkour, but there is still a lot of wilderness, and every time the game asked me to venture out of the city, I sighed. The amount of collectibles was balanced and clearing out the map was easy. The last big complaint I have is the melee combat. This is one of the most unsatisfying light attack, heavy attack, parry and dodge mechanics I've ever played. It almost feels like they made it terrible by design to encourage stealth gameplay, which I'm happy to say is amazing. amazing. The stealth is so much fun. Assassinating enemies is as satisfying as ever, and you have a good arsenal of gadgets to use to your advantage. Some of the gadgets like the smoke bombs and throwing knives can make the game quite easy even on hard difficulty, but it didn't really bother me as they were just so much fun to use. Basim controls nicely in stealth, and I feel like the enemy detection was always fair. The level design was really good in both normal missions and the main assassinations. The main assassinations do bring back the different opportunities that you need to investigate to find ways into secluded areas or revealing cinematic assassination moments. The game also introduces us to a new mechanic where you can glitch the animus to string together multiple assassinations. I found the mechanic off-putting at first, but grew to love it throughout the game as I found new ways to use it, not only to assassinate people, but to traverse through larger gaps. Assassin's Creed Mirage does feel like an AC game, and that is the most important thing. I had lots of fun engaging with the game's mission design and stealth gameplay, and that easily carried the game through the 20 hours that it took to get through the story, gathering all collectibles and completing most of the contracts. I wish the story captured me more, and the lack of any modern day story was disappointing, as were the wordless RPG mechanics. The game is very worthwhile for the fans of the franchise, but you might want to wait for a sale. In my previous video, I ranked all of the mainline AC games, and after finishing Mirage, I feel like it belongs in the B tier for me. Thank you for watching, and I hope you found the review helpful. I'm curious to hear your opinions on the game if you have played it, and feedback on the videos is always appreciated. Next couple weeks will be busy as Spider-Man 2 comes out next week and Alan Wake 2 a week after, but I'll have reviews of those when I've finished them. I also got a couple other videos brewing, so make sure to hit those like and subscribe buttons so you don't miss them. Thank you and have a great day.